My name is Tony, and at 57 years old, I've learned that some doors are meant to stay closed. The basement door in my home has been locked for over a decade, and nobody, not even my son, has ever asked to go down there. It's been our unspoken understanding. But when Brandon brought home a woman who looked at my house the way a jeweler looks at diamonds, I knew that simple lock wouldn't be enough anymore. So I installed something stronger, a digital lock with a code only I knew. 3 days ago, while I was in Seattle on business, my phone rang at 2 in the morning. It was Brandon, and I could hear the panic in his voice before he even spoke. Before we go any further, I'd love to know where you're watching this from. Drop your location in the comments below, and if you've ever had to protect something precious from someone you didn't trust, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel because what happened next is something I'll never forget, and I think you'll want to hear how this all played out. Trust me, this story is just getting started. Now let me take you back to the beginning and tell you why that basement means everything to me. People always ask me why I'm so protective of that basement, and the truth is, it's not about the basement itself. It's about what's inside. It's about Sarah. Sarah was my wife, my whole world really. We met when I was 24, fresh out of engineering school, cocky as hell, and thinking I knew everything. She was at an art gallery downtown, standing in front of a painting that looked like someone had thrown paint at a canvas and called it genius. I made some stupid comment about modern art, and she turned around and gave me a look that could have frozen water. Then she smiled, and that smile changed my life. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Sarah wanted it simple because she said the marriage mattered more than the wedding. She was right about that, like she was right about most things. We bought this house when Brandon was on the way. It was a fixer-upper, but Sarah saw potential where I just saw problems. She always did that, saw beauty in broken things. The basement was Sarah's studio. She was a painter, a real artist, not someone who did it as a hobby on weekends. She had pieces in galleries across 3 states, landscapes mostly, but also portraits that seemed to look right into your soul. She'd spend hours down there surrounded by canvases and the smell of oil paint and turpentine. Sometimes I'd bring her coffee at midnight and find her still working, completely lost in whatever she was creating. Brandon was born on a Tuesday morning in April. Sarah painted until the contractions got too close together, then finally agreed to go to the hospital. Our boy came into the world screaming healthy and perfect. For 11 years, we had everything. Sarah painted, I built buildings, and Brandon grew up knowing he was loved by 2 people who would do anything for him. Then Sarah got sick. It started with fatigue. She blamed it on working too hard, staying up too late in the basement. By the time we found out it was cancer, it had already spread too far. The doctors gave her 6 months. She lasted 8 fighting every single day, not for herself, but for us. The last thing she painted was a portrait of Brandon. She never finished it. There's still a whole section in the upper right corner that's just pencil sketch, waiting for colors that never came. That painting sits on an easel in the basement, exactly where she left it 12 years ago. After Sarah died, I couldn't go down there for months. Everything reminded me of her. The half-finished paintings, her brushes still in the jars, her handwriting in the notebooks where she sketched ideas. But eventually I started going down every Saturday night. It became my ritual, my way of staying close to her. I never told Brandon he couldn't go down there. He just understood. Even as a kid, he got it. That was Mom's space, and now it was Dad's way of remembering her. He never questioned it, never pushed. He'd see me heading down with a beer on Saturday nights and just give me a nod, let me have that time. The basement also housed other things Sarah collected. She loved antiques, especially old pottery and vintage clocks. She'd hit estate sales every weekend, come home with treasures she found. Some of them turned out to be valuable, but that wasn't why she collected them. She loved the stories behind them, the history. Each piece meant something to her. I kept everything exactly as she left it. The workshop area with her easel and paints, the shelves with her collection, her journals filled with sketches and thoughts. Even the coffee cup she used that last morning still sitting on the workbench. I washed it once carefully, then put it back. Some people might think that's morbid, holding on to the past like that. But to me, that basement isn't about death. It's about preserving the beauty Sarah brought into the world. Brandon grew up understanding loss in a way most kids don't have to. He was 11 when his mom died, old enough to remember everything, young enough that it shaped who he became. I did my best raising him alone. Went to every school event, helped with homework, taught him how to change a tire and balance a checkbook. We made it work, him and me. He was a good kid, Quiet, maybe a little too trusting, but good-hearted. He studied computer science in college, graduated with decent grades, got a job at a tech startup downtown. Nothing flashy but steady. Exactly the kind of solid foundation I'd hoped he'd build for himself. For 23 years, it was just the two of us in this house. We had our routines, our understanding. The basement stayed locked, life moved forward, and we honored Sarah's memory by living the kind of lives she would have wanted for us. Simple, honest, good. Then, 6 months ago, Brandon came home and told me he'd met someone. Her name was Cassandra, and the first time Brandon brought her through the front door, every instinct I had started screaming. She was older than Brandon, that was obvious right away. I'd guess somewhere in her early 30s, though. She dressed like someone trying to look younger. Tight clothes, makeup that seemed more appropriate for a nightclub than a Sunday dinner. But that wasn't what bothered me. What bothered me was the way her eyes moved around the room, cataloging everything, calculating. Brandon was nervous introducing her, which wasn't like him. He stumbled over his words, laughed too loud at things that weren't funny. Cassandra, on the other hand, was smooth as glass. She shook my hand with just the right amount of firmness, smiled with all her teeth showing, called me Tony like we were old friends. "Brandon has told me so much about you," she said, her voice honey-sweet. "This house is absolutely gorgeous. How long have you lived here?" 24 years. I said, watching her eyes light up at that number. She was doing math in her head. Property values in this neighborhood had tripled since we bought the place. "It must be worth quite a lot now," she said, still smiling. "Brandon mentioned you're in construction. Did you do all the renovations yourself?" Red flag number 1. We were 5 minutes into meeting and she was already talking about what my house was worth. Dinner was awkward. Brandon kept trying to fill the silences, talking about work, about a movie they'd seen, anything to keep conversation flowing. Cassandra asked questions that seemed innocent on the surface, but weren't. How long until I retired? Whether I planned to downsize eventually? If I had other family? "Just Brandon," I said. "His mother passed away when he was young." "Oh, I'm so sorry," Cassandra said, her hand going to her chest in practiced sympathy. "That must have been so hard on both of you. Where do you keep her things?" "Pictures and mementos." "Around," I said vaguely. I wasn't about to tell this woman about the basement, but Brandon, trying to be helpful, said, "Dad has a lot of Mom's stuff in the basement, her art supplies and everything." Cassandra's eyes sharpened. "You have a basement? Can I see it?" "It's just storage," I said quickly. "Nothing interesting." "I love old houses." She pressed. "The basements always have the best character." "Maybe another time," I said, and changed the subject. The rest of the evening I caught her glancing toward the basement door in the hallway. Just quick looks, but I noticed. She was curious, and that made me uneasy. After they left, I stood at my living room window and watched Brandon's car pull away. Something was wrong. I'd raised that boy, knew him better than anyone, and I'd never seen him act like that. So eager to please, so desperate for approval. That wasn't love. That was something else. Over the next few weeks, Brandon brought Cassandra around more often. She was always pleasant, always complimentary, but I started noticing patterns. She'd wander while Brandon was in the bathroom or helping me in the kitchen. I'd find her in rooms she had no reason to be in, always with an excuse ready, looking for the bathroom, admiring the architecture, checking if she'd left her phone somewhere. Twice I caught her standing in front of the basement door. Both times she jumped when I came around the corner, laughed it off. "I thought this might be the laundry room," she said once. "These old houses, you never know what's behind each door." The basement door was clearly marked. Not with a sign, but it was different from the others. Heavier, older wood. Anyone looking could tell it wasn't just another closet. I tried talking to Brandon about it, carefully because I didn't want to push him away. We were having coffee one morning, just the two of us, and I said, "Son, I like that you're happy, but are you sure about Cassandra? You two seem really different." His face closed up immediately. "Different how?" "Just different. Different backgrounds, different ages, different, I don't know, priorities." "You don't know her like I do, Dad." His voice had an edge I wasn't used to hearing. "She's had a really hard life. She's been through a lot." "I'm sure she has. I'm just saying, take your time. You've only known her a few months. You and Mom got married after 2 years. We were both 26. You're 23 and she's 32, so what?" Brandon stood up, his coffee unfinished. "I thought you'd be happy for me. Guess I was wrong. He left before I could explain that I wasn't trying to control him, just protect him. But that conversation planted something between us. a small distance that Cassandra seemed happy to widen. I started paying closer attention, not snooping exactly, but observing. I noticed how Cassandra always steered conversation toward finances, how much Brandon made, what his career prospects looked like, whether I had a will, and what would happen to the house if something happened to me. She framed it all as concern planning for the future being practical. But it felt like an audit. Then one afternoon I came home early from a job site and found her alone in my house. Brandon had given her a key apparently. She was in my study looking through papers on my desk. "Cassandra." She spun around and for just a second I saw something in her face, calculation, annoyance at being caught. Then the smile slid back into place. "Tony, you scared me. I was just waiting for Brandon. He said he'd be home soon." "Those are my personal documents." "Oh, I wasn't reading them. I was just moving them to set down my purse." She gestured to her bag, which was nowhere near my desk. "Brandon has his own place," I said. "Why are you waiting here?" Another flash of irritation quickly covered. "He asked me to meet him here. Is that a problem? In the future, maybe wait in the living room." She left shortly after, and I checked what she'd been looking at. Property tax statements, insurance documents, an appraisal I'd had done last year for insurance purposes. She'd been calculating what this house was worth. I knew then what she was. I'd seen her type before, usually hanging around construction sites where wealthy developers worked, women who saw men as opportunities rather than people. Gold diggers, though that term seemed almost too kind. The question was, what to do about it? Brandon was an adult. I couldn't forbid him from seeing her. Any attempt to control the situation would just push him further into her arms. I'd seen that dynamic play out with other families. The more you fight it, the more they cling. So I waited, watched, and started making plans of my own just in case. 4 months after I met Cassandra, Brandon called and asked if he could come over to talk, just the two of us. My heart sank before he even said the words. I asked Cassandra to marry me. She said yes. I looked at my son, saw the hope in his eyes, the fear that I'd disapprove the desperate need for my blessing, and I swallowed everything I wanted to say. Instead, I hugged him and said, "If she makes you happy, then I'm happy for you." The relief on his face was painful to see. "Really? You mean it?" "I mean it. When's the wedding?" "We're thinking next month. Small ceremony. Cassandra doesn't have much family and we just want something simple." Next month. They'd been together 4 months, engaged for approximately 5 minutes, and now getting married in 30 days. Everything about it screamed wrong, but what could I say? Brandon was 23, legally an adult, and I'd already tried talking to him once. Pushing harder would only make things worse. The wedding was on a Saturday in June, 15 people in a judge's office downtown. Cassandra wore white, which struck me as optimistic given this was apparently her 3rd marriage, but I kept that observation to myself. I'd done some checking after Brandon announced the engagement, hired a private investigator actually because I needed to know who my son was marrying. The report came back 3 days before the wedding. Cassandra Marie Peterson had been married twice before. First husband was 56, owned a chain of car dealerships. Marriage lasted 2 years, ended in divorce. Cassandra walked away with a 6-figure settlement. Second husband was 49, real estate developer. 18 months of marriage, another divorce, another settlement. Both men claimed she'd married them for money. Both said she'd been charming at first, then demanding, then outright hostile when she didn't get what she wanted. The second husband's lawyer had documented text messages where Cassandra discussed the marriage as a business transaction with her friends. I gave Brandon the report 2 days before the wedding. He looked at it for maybe 30 seconds before throwing it back at me. "You hired someone to investigate her. What is wrong with you? Brandon, please, just read it." "No?" "This is insane, Dad. You're trying to sabotage my happiness because you can't stand to see me with someone." "That's not true. I just want you to know who you're marrying." "I know who I'm marrying. I know she had a couple of failed relationships. So what, people have pasts. She told me about all of this already." That stopped me. "She told you she married 2 wealthy men and divorced them both for money. She told me she made mistakes when she was younger, that she was with men for the wrong reasons. But she's different now. She loves me for me, not for anything else." "Son, please, think about this." "I have thought about it, and I'm done listening to you try to ruin this." He grabbed his jacket. "Cassandra was right. You don't want me to be happy. You want to keep me here under your control forever." He walked out. Didn't come back that night or the next. Got married without me there, though I'd been planning to go despite everything. He sent me a text afterwards. Got married today. Thanks for nothing. That hurt worse than anything Cassandra could have done. They moved into Brandon's apartment for about 2 weeks. Then Cassandra started working on him. I know because I heard them arguing in the driveway when they came to pick up some of Brandon's things. Her voice carried through the open window. Your dad lives in that huge house all alone. We're cramped in this tiny apartment. It's not fair, Brandon. You grew up in that house. You have every right to live there. He likes his space. He's being selfish. That house has 4 bedrooms, and he uses 1. Meanwhile, we can barely afford rent, and he's sitting on a property worth over $800,000. $800,000. She'd done her research. The number was accurate. A week later, Brandon asked if they could move in temporarily, just until they saved up for a down payment on their own place. He couldn't look me in the eye when he asked, knew I'd see Cassandra's manipulation in every word, but I said yes, because saying no would have meant losing him completely, and he was all I had left of Sarah. They moved into the guest room on a Sunday. Cassandra swept through the house like a storm, rearranging furniture, talking about updates we could make and wasted space we could utilize. She eyed the basement door like a cat watching a mouse hole. We should really see what's down there, she said at dinner that first night. If it's just storage, we could clean it out, maybe finish it into a rec room or something. The basement stays as it is, I said. But Brandon has a right to his mother's things. Don't you, honey? She'd gotten smart using Brandon as a shield. He looked uncomfortable but said, I wouldn't mind seeing Mom's paintings sometime. They're not going anywhere, I said. When the time is right, I'll show you, but not yet. Cassandra's smile was sharp. When will the time be right, Tony? It's been 12 years. When I say it is. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Brandon tried to smooth things over, but the battle lines had been drawn. Cassandra wanted access to that basement, and I wasn't going to give it to her. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. Cassandra would accidentally try the basement door several times a day, then claim she thought it was the pantry or the coat closet. She'd make comments about how unhealthy it was to hold on to the past, how Sarah would have wanted her things to be used and appreciated, not locked away. She didn't know Sarah, didn't know that my wife would have burned every painting herself before letting someone like Cassandra touch them. I caught her attempting to pick the lock one afternoon. She had a bobby pin in the keyhole, working it back and forth. When I cleared my throat, she jumped about a foot. The door was sticking, she said. I was trying to help. By picking the lock, I wasn't. The mechanism seemed jammed. Stay away from that door, Cassandra. She dropped the pretense then. Her face hardened, all the fake sweetness gone. You can't keep me out forever. I live here now too. I have rights. You have the rights I give you. This is my house. For now. That threat hung in the air between us. She was planning something. I could see it in her eyes and the way she smiled as she walked away. That night I went online and ordered a new lock, digital with a keypad code, $800 for the best security I could buy. When it arrived, I installed it myself, changing out the old hardware for something that couldn't be picked or forced without serious tools. Brandon came home while I was finishing. Dad, what are you doing? Upgrading the security. On the basement, you're serious, very serious. This is because of Cassandra. This is because I need to know that room is secure. She's my wife. And this is my house and my decision. The basement stays locked. End of discussion. He wanted to argue. I could see it in the set of his shoulders, the way his hands clenched, but he also saw something in my face that stopped him. Maybe he realized I wasn't budging. Maybe some part of him understood why. Cassandra was furious. She screamed about it that night. I could hear her through the walls, though I couldn't make out all the words. Brandon's responses were quiet or pleading. By morning, they weren't speaking to each other. By afternoon, she was back to her sweet act, but I saw the calculation in her eyes. She was planning her next move, and I needed to be ready. 3 weeks after I installed the digital lock, my boss called with news I'd been expecting. The Seattle project was moving forward, and they needed someone on site to oversee the final phase. 5 days, maybe 6. It was a big job, important for the company, and I was the most experienced supervisor they had. I almost said no. The thought of leaving Brandon alone with Cassandra for nearly a week made my stomach turn. but refusing would have raised questions I couldn't answer. Besides, I'd been preparing for this possibility. 2 months earlier, right after Cassandra moved in, I'd installed cameras. Not obvious ones. Small, wireless, motion-activated, hidden in the basement behind some of Sarah's old canvases and on a shelf between pottery pieces. They connected to my phone, sent alerts whenever someone entered the room. The feed was encrypted, saved to cloud storage automatically. I'd also prepared a folder. Everything the private investigator had found on Cassandra, plus some additional digging I'd done myself. Bank records showing a pattern of debt and expensive purchases. Social media posts she thought were private talking about landing a big fish and securing the bag. Text messages to friends where she discussed Brandon as a project and me as an obstacle. Getting those texts hadn't been cheap or entirely legal, but I'd done what I needed to do. The folder sat in Sarah's old desk in the basement waiting. The morning I left for Seattle, I checked the basement thoroughly. Everything was in place. The cameras were working, tested and retested. The digital lock was solid. I'd changed the code just to be safe, used a number combination that meant something to me and Sarah, but that nobody else could guess. Brandon drove me to the airport. Things had been tense between us since the lock incident, but he was still my son. We made awkward conversation about his work, my project neutral territory. "Take care of the house while I'm gone," I said as he pulled up to departures. "I always do, Dad." "I know. I wanted to warn him, tell him to watch his back, watch his wife, watch for anything suspicious, but that would have sounded paranoid, would have pushed him further away. Just take care." He nodded and I grabbed my bag and headed inside. The first day in Seattle was busy enough that I barely thought about home. Meetings, site inspections, paperwork. I checked my phone during breaks looking at the camera feed. The basement door stayed closed. No alerts. Day 2 was the same. Long hours, physical work exhaustion. I called Brandon that evening. He sounded normal, maybe a little distant, but normal. "Everything good at home?" "Yeah, fine. Quiet without you here." "Cassandra doing okay?" "She's fine. Working on some stuff." Working on some stuff. That phrase stuck with me after we hung up. What stuff? But I couldn't ask without sounding suspicious. Day 3. That's when things started happening. I was in a meeting at 2 in the afternoon when my phone buzzed. Motion alert from the basement. I excused myself, stepped into the hallway, pulled up the camera feed. Cassandra stood in front of the basement door. She had her phone out trying to light up the keypad and was punching in numbers. I watched her try combination after combination. Birth dates, wedding anniversaries, random sequences. Nothing worked. After about 20 attempts, she gave up, but not before I saw her kick the door hard enough that the bang must have echoed through the house. Her face was twisted with frustration, all pretense of sweetness gone. This was the real Cassandra. Angry, entitled, desperate. She tried again that evening. I was having dinner with the Seattle project team when the alert came. Same thing. More number combinations, more failures, more frustration. This time she took her phone and appeared to be calling someone. The next morning, day 4, I woke up to an alert at 6 a.m. Multiple alerts, actually. Someone had entered the basement. My hands shook as I opened the camera feed. The door was open, and Cassandra was inside. She'd done it. Somehow she'd gotten past the lock. As I watched, a man in a uniform walked out of frame. A locksmith. She'd hired a professional to break into my basement. I sat up in bed, heart hammering, watching Cassandra move through Sarah's workspace. Her eyes were wide, greedy, taking in everything. The paintings, the antique collection, the pottery pieces worth thousands of dollars each. She had her phone out, taking pictures of everything. She picked up one of Sarah's journals, flipped through it without really reading, tossed it aside. Opened drawers, pulled out sketches, discarded them on the floor like trash. This wasn't about Brandon's right to his mother's things. This was about money. She was cataloging assets. I watched her lift a Ming vase Sarah had found at an estate sale. 14 inches tall, blue and white, authenticated and worth nearly $30,000. Cassandra held it up to the light, took several pictures, put it down carelessly, moved on to the next item. My phone rang. Brandon. I almost didn't answer, was so focused on the camera feed, but instinct made me pick up. "Dad," his voice cracked. "Dad, you need to come home." "What's wrong?" Cassandra, she's in the basement." "I know." Silence. Then, "How do you know? Is she still down there?" "Yes, how do you know?" "Put me on speaker, Brandon. I need to talk to both of you." More silence, shuffling sounds. Then Cassandra's voice, defiant. "Tony, we need to discuss this reasonably." "There's nothing to discuss. You broke into my private property." "Brandon has every right to his mother's belongings." "Brandon, are you down there with her?" "Yeah, Dad. I came home from the gym and the door was open and there's a locksmith's van outside. I hired a professional, Cassandra said. The lock was changed without my knowledge or consent. As a resident of this home, I have rights. You have no rights to that room. Brandon, look at the left corner, near your mother's easel. See the small red light? Pause. Then Brandon's voice shaky. Yeah, what is it? Camera. I've been recording everything since yesterday morning. I heard Cassandra's sharp intake of breath. Good. Let her worry. You've been spying. Brandon sounded hurt. I've been protecting. Everything Cassandra has done in the last 3 minutes is on video. The locksmith breaking the lock. Her going through your mother's things. All of it. This is illegal, Cassandra sputtered. You can't record people without their permission. In my own home, I absolutely can, especially when those people are committing crimes, breaking and entering, attempted theft. Should I continue? I wasn't stealing anything. Brandon, what's she holding? One of Mom's pottery pieces. Cassandra put it down, carefully. The camera showed her setting it down, her face flushed with anger. You planned this, she hissed. You knew I'd try to get in and you set me up. I protected my property. Brandon, there's a folder in the desk by the window, the top right drawer. Can you get it? More shuffling. I watched through the camera as Brandon moved to the desk, opened the drawer, pulled out the thick folder I'd prepared. What is this? He asked. Open it. Even through the phone, I could hear papers rustling. The silence that followed stretched for what felt like hours. Dad? Brandon's voice was hollow. What? Where did you get this? Private investigator 2 months ago. Cassandra, you want to explain to Brandon what he's reading? Those are lies, all of it. He fabricated those documents. The bank records are real. The court documents from your previous divorces are public record. The text messages. Well, those I had to work a little harder for, but they're authentic. Brandon can verify them if he wants. I heard Cassandra's voice rise. You had no right. Those are my private conversations. About my son. About stealing from my family. I had every right. Brandon, please. Her tone changed, became pleading. I can explain all of this. These are taken out of context. You told someone I was a project, Brandon's voice cracked. You said once you got me to sell the house, you'd split with your half. Baby, no, that's not. I was joking. You know how girls talk. You married 2 other men for money. I was young and made mistakes. But what we have is different. Is it? Now Brandon's voice hardened. Were you ever going to tell me about any of this? Silence. Brandon? I said quietly. I'm catching the next flight home. Should be there by evening. Don't let her take anything from that basement. Not one item. Can you do that for me? Yeah, his voice was thick. Yeah, I can do that. Cassandra, you have a choice. Leave now quietly and take your things. Or stay and I call the police with video evidence of you breaking into my locked room and attempting to steal property. Your decision, but you've got about 5 minutes to make it. You can't kick me out. I'm his wife. I have legal rights. Your rights to what? My house that you wanted to sell. My dead wife's things that you were photographing to fence Brandon's trust that you violated. Which rights are we talking about? Through the camera, I could see her face, the calculation happening behind her eyes. She was weighing options, trying to find an angle. Cassandra. Brandon's voice was quiet but firm. Just go. Brandon, honey, please. We can work through this. No, we can't. Please, just go. The fight went out of her then. Or maybe she just realized she'd lost. Through the camera, I watched her storm up the stairs, heard the slam of doors, the crash of something being thrown. Then, 15 minutes later, the front door slammed hard enough to shake the walls. Brandon stayed in the basement. I could see him on the camera sitting on the floor near Sarah's easel, the folder spread around him, reading every page. His shoulders shook. He was crying and I was 2,000 miles away, unable to do anything but watch. Son, I said softly into the phone. You still there? Yeah. I'm sorry. Why are you sorry? You were right about everything. I'm sorry you got hurt. I'm sorry she fooled you. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this. You did protect me. That's what all this was, wasn't it? The lock, the cameras, the folder. You were protecting me. Always, son. Always. I made it home by 9 that night. Caught a flight out of Seattle within an hour of that phone call, didn't even pack properly, just threw things in my bag and ran. The project could wait. My son couldn't. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Most of the lights were off, just the porch light on like I'd left it. Brandon's car was in its usual spot. No sign of Cassandra's vehicle, thank God. I found Brandon in the living room, sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. The folder was on the coffee table in front of him, papers spread out like evidence at a crime scene. "Hey," I said quietly. He looked up. His eyes were red-face blotchy. "Hey." I sat down next to him. We didn't say anything for a while. Sometimes silence is the only thing that fits. Finally, Brandon spoke. "I'm an idiot." "You're not." "I am. You tried to warn me. You showed me the evidence before the wedding and I threw it in your face, called you controlling, accused you of trying to sabotage my happiness." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Turns out you were the only one actually looking out for me. You were in love, or you thought you were. How did you know? From the start, how did you see it?" I thought about that. The way she looked at things instead of people, the questions she asked, they were never about you or about building a life together. They were about property values and bank accounts and inheritance. She saw this house the way a shark sees blood in the water. I feel so stupid. Don't. She was good at what she did. This wasn't her first time running this game. Brandon picked up one of the documents, a text message exchange between Cassandra and someone named Julie. "Listen to this. The old man is stubborn, but he's not going to live forever. The house alone is worth almost $1 million. Once Brandon inherits, I'll convince him to sell. We can split the profit and I'm out." She was planning my father's death, actually discussing it like it was inevitable and convenient. Some people see other humans as obstacles or resources, nothing in between. She never loved me. Probably not. But that says everything about her and nothing about you, your lovable son. You're kind and trusting and good. She exploited that. That's on her, not you. He was quiet again. Then, "Can I see the basement? Really see it, I mean. Not like I was seeing it this morning." I looked at him. Really looked. Saw my son grown up, but still the boy who'd lost his mother too young, who'd been trying to find something to fill that space ever since. Maybe Cassandra had seemed like the answer. Someone to build a family with, someone to make the house feel less empty. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, let's go down." We walked to the basement door together. I punched in the code and the lock clicked open. The new locksmith had done a good job. The damaged mechanism from Cassandra's break-in had been replaced with something even stronger. I'd called from the airport, had them come out on an emergency basis. Cost me extra, but worth it. The basement stairs creaked the way they always had. Sarah used to say they were announcing visitors, giving her time to hide any surprise paintings she was working on. I flipped the light switch, and the space flooded with warm yellow light from the old fixtures I'd never replaced. Brandon stopped at the bottom of the stairs. Just stopped and stared. Sarah's workspace looked like she might walk back in any moment. The easel with the unfinished portrait of baby Brandon. Her brushes in their jars arranged by size. Tubes of paint, some dried out now, others still usable. Sketches pinned to a corkboard. Her smock hanging on a hook. "I didn't remember," Brandon whispered. "I didn't remember it looking like this." "You were 11 when she died. 12 when I started keeping it like this." He walked slowly through the space, touching things gently. A paintbrush, the edge of a canvas. He stopped in front of the portrait of himself. "She never finished it." "No, ran out of time." "It's still beautiful." It was. Despite being incomplete, or maybe because of it, the painting captured something essential about Brandon as a baby. The curve of his cheek. The way his eyes even then seemed to see more than they should. Sarah had been painting love, not just an image. Brandon moved to the shelves where Sarah kept her collection. He picked up the Ming vase carefully, reverently. "Cassandra took pictures of this." I saw. "She was going to sell it, wasn't she, all of it? That was my guess. Figured she'd convince you it was yours by right, that we should liquidate your mother's collection to fund your future or some garbage like that." Would have worked, probably. A few weeks ago, I would have believed her. He set the vase down carefully. "What's this worth, anyway?" "That piece, 30,000, give or take." He whistled low. "And she was just She handled it like it was nothing. Because to her it was nothing, just a number. She didn't see what your mother saw in it. What did Mom see? I moved closer, picked up the vase. This was from an estate sale about a year before she got sick. The woman who'd owned it was 93, had been a missionary in China in the 1930s. She brought this back with her, kept it for 70 years. When your mom found it at the sale, she spent an hour talking to the woman's daughter, learning the story. The vase wasn't valuable to your mom because of what it cost. It was valuable because of the history, the journey it had taken, the love that had preserved it. Brandon was quiet, processing that. Then he moved to the desk, saw Sarah's journals. Can I? They're yours as much as mine. He picked one up, opened it carefully. Sarah's handwriting, neat and precise, filled the pages, sketches in the margins, notes about color mixing and light theory, but also personal things, observations about me, about Brandon, about life. Listen to this, Brandon said, reading. Watch Tony teach Brandon to ride a bike today. He's so patient even when Brandon got frustrated and threw the bike down. Tony just picked it up, made a joke, tried again. That's the kind of father I hoped he'd be. The kind who doesn't give up even when it's hard. Mom wrote that about you. Something in my chest cracked open. She wrote a lot, kept journals from the time she was 16 until the end. I want to read them. All of them. Is that okay? More than okay. They're part of your inheritance, the real inheritance, not the house or the vases or the paintings, the words, the love, the memories. Brandon sat down on the old couch Sarah used to nap on between painting sessions. He kept reading, tears running down his face, but the kind of tears that heal rather than hurt. I sat next to him. We spent hours down there that night, reading Sarah's words, looking at her paintings, telling stories. Brandon asked questions about her that he'd never asked before, what she liked to eat, what music she listened to, how we met. I answered everything, grateful that he wanted to know, that he was finally ready to know. Around 2 a.m, Brandon closed the journal he'd been reading and said, "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow." That's probably wise. She's going to fight it, isn't she? Probably, but she won't win. We have documentation of her fraud, her intentions, her history. Any lawyer worth their fee will advise her to walk away. I can't believe I married her. You can't choose who you fall for. You can only choose what you do when you realize it was wrong. What I'm doing is getting a damn good lawyer and making sure she doesn't get a penny. There was steel in his voice I'd never heard before. Good. He'd need that. I know someone, handled my business contracts for years. She's a shark, but in the best way. Thanks, Dad. He paused. For everything. For protecting Mom's stuff. For protecting me even when I was too stupid to see it. That's what fathers do. We went upstairs as dawn was breaking. Brandon went to his old room, the one he'd had before Cassandra, before everything. I heard him moving around in there, and when I passed by, I saw he was packing up things from the master bedroom, getting rid of any trace of her. The divorce took 3 months to finalize. Cassandra tried to fight it at first, claimed the investigation into her background was illegal, that the prenup she'd signed was invalid. Her lawyer took one look at the evidence we had and advised her to settle for nothing. She could walk away clean, or we could press charges for attempted theft and make things very difficult. She walked away, signed the papers, took her clothes, and disappeared. Last I heard, she'd moved to Florida, probably looking for her next target. Brandon moved through those months like a man walking through fog. He went to work, came home, existed. I worried about him, but I also knew he needed time to process everything. Betrayal like that doesn't heal quickly. What helped was the basement. He started going down there in the evenings. At first, just to read Sarah's journals. Then he started organizing things, cataloging the collection properly. He found receipts Sarah had kept, stories about where each piece came from. He made a spreadsheet, documented everything. "Did you know this clock was from a lighthouse keeper in Maine?" he asked me one evening. "Mom bought it from his granddaughter. The keeper wound it every day for 40 years, never missed once." I didn't know that. It's all in her notes. Every piece has a story. He started researching art conservation, reached out to a few galleries about proper preservation techniques for the paintings. One of them offered to display some of Sarah's work. Brandon spent weeks selecting pieces, writing descriptions that included Sarah's own words from her journals. The opening was on a Saturday in September, small gallery, downtown, intimate space. Brandon gave a speech about his mother that made half the room cry. He talked about her passion for art, for history, for finding beauty in forgotten things. He talked about loss and memory and learning to honor the past while living in the present. I stood in the back watching my son and felt Sarah's presence so strongly it was like she was standing next to me. This was what she would have wanted. Not her things locked away, but her story told, her art shared, her love made visible. After the opening, Brandon and I went home together. The house felt different now, not empty but full of memory, of purpose, of healing. "I met someone," Brandon said out of nowhere as we sat in the living room. My heart did a little skip. "Oh. Her name is Emma. She works at the gallery. We've been talking for a few weeks. Just talking, nothing serious yet." "What's she like?" "She's kind, really kind, and she loves art." We spent an hour discussing Mom's technique on that landscape piece, the one with the mountains, the one Sarah painted on our anniversary trip to Colorado. "Yeah." Emma knew just by looking at it that it meant something. She said you can see the love in the brushstrokes. He smiled. She asked about the story behind it, not what it was worth, the story. I felt something loosen in my chest. "She sounds good?" "She is, and I'm not. I'm not rushing into anything. I'm taking my time, learning to trust my own judgment again." "That's smart. I learned from the best." We sat in comfortable silence. Then Brandon said, "The basement door is still unlocked." "I know. You going to lock it again?" I thought about that. "Don't think I need to, do you?" "No, I think it's better open. Mom wouldn't have wanted it locked away. She would have wanted it shared, used, loved." "You're probably right. Can I bring Emma by sometime? Show her the rest of Mom's work?" "Anytime you want." 3 weeks later, Brandon brought Emma to the house. She was exactly what he'd described. Kind eyes, genuine smile, asked questions about Sarah's work that showed real interest and understanding. She spent 2 hours in the basement, looking at paintings, reading some of the journal entries Brandon showed her. She cried at the unfinished portrait of baby Brandon. "Your mother loved you so much," she told him. "You can see it in every line. Even incomplete, this painting is full of love." I liked her. More than that, I trusted her. There was nothing calculated in her interest, nothing greedy in the way she looked at things. She saw what Sarah had seen, the stories, the love, the beauty. After she left, Brandon helped me make dinner. We moved around the kitchen in easy rhythm, the way we'd learned to do in the years after Sarah died. "She's good for you," I said. "Yeah, I think so too." He paused. "I'm not going to make the same mistake twice." "I know. But I'm also not going to be so scared that I miss out on something real." That's the balance, being careful without being closed off. "Did you ever think about dating again after Mom?" The question surprised me. "Not really. Your mom was. She was it for me. Some people get one great love. I got mine." "Don't you get lonely?" "Sometimes. But I have you. I have my work. I have this house full of memories. That's enough." We ate dinner together, talking about his work, my latest project. Emma's interest in opening her own gallery someday. Normal things, family things. That night I went down to the basement like I'd done every Saturday for 12 years. But this time I left the door open, sat on Sarah's couch, looked at her paintings, felt her presence. "Our boy's going to be okay," I said to the empty room. "He got hurt, but he's healing, and he's learned. He knows the difference now between someone who wants him and someone who loves him." The room didn't answer, but I felt a sense of peace settle over me anyway. I'd protected what mattered. Not just the paintings or the vases or the journals. I'd protected Brandon. Given him space to make his own mistakes, but also been there to catch him when he fell. The basement wasn't a tomb anymore. It was a bridge. Between past and present, between loss and healing, between Sarah's love and the future Brandon was building. I thought about Cassandra sometimes, wondered if she'd found another mark, another house to target. But mostly I didn't think about her at all. She was a chapter that had closed, a storm that had passed. What mattered was what remained: family, love, the legacy Sarah had left in her art and her words and her son. I looked at the unfinished portrait of Brandon one more time before heading upstairs. Tomorrow I'd call the art conservation specialist Brandon had found. See about having it professionally preserved, make sure it lasted another generation, maybe 2. For now, though, I just sat with it. With the memories, with the gratitude that Sarah had been in my life, even if not for as long as I'd wanted, with the knowledge that everything I'd done from the locks to the cameras to the investigation had been worth it. I'd protected my family, both the one I'd lost and the one I still had, and sometimes that's all a father can do. So here's what I learned from all of this. Sometimes the things we protect the most aren't just objects or places. They're the people we love and the memories we cherish. And sometimes the best way to protect them is to let the truth reveal itself in its own time. My basement will always be there. A reminder of Sarah, of what we had, of what we'll always carry forward. And now Brandon carries it too. He goes down there with Emma, sometimes shows her his mother's work, tells her stories. The space isn't frozen in time anymore. It's alive again the way Sarah would have wanted. Brandon's divorce finalized 2 months ago. He's building a new life, a better one, with his eyes open this time. Emma's a part of that life now, and watching them together gives me hope. They take things slow, talk about real things, build on a foundation of honesty instead of illusion. The digital lock is still on the basement door, but I don't engage it anymore. Don't need to. The threat has passed. Cassandra is gone, and with her the urgency to guard everything so closely. But I'll never regret installing that lock, never regret the cameras or the investigation or any of it. Because protecting the people you love isn't about trust or paranoia. It's about being ready, being vigilant, knowing that sometimes the world sends predators disguised as lovers, and you need to be strong enough to see through the disguise. Sarah would have approved, I think. She always said that love without wisdom is just foolishness, and wisdom without love is just cold calculation. You need both, the heart to care and the head to protect. I've got both now. And so does Brandon. The basement stays unlocked these days. The door stands open most of the time, letting light spill down the stairs into Sarah's workshop. Her paintings hang in galleries now, some of them. Her story is being told. Her love is being shared. And that's exactly how it should be. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to protect someone you love from a person who meant them harm? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if you've been through something similar, or know someone who has hit that like button, subscribe to this channel because I'll be sharing more stories like this, stories about family protection and the complicated ways we show love. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who might be in a similar situation, or someone who struggled with trusting their instincts about people. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope it gave you something to think about, maybe even something that helps you in your own life. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and remember, it's okay to protect what matters. It's okay to be cautious. It's okay to trust your gut when something feels wrong. Until next time, stay safe and stay strong.